It's Monday. That means it's Open Line. Thank you for joining us. We are talking with Andy Spears from Tennessee Citizen Action about living on a minimum wage and what's Tennessee's efforts in trying to raise that level. Let's go to the lines. We've got Reverend Fuzz on the line with us. Hi, Reverend Fuzz. Go ahead, Reverend.
Hello.
Hi there. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to try this scenario that I've been, watching about economy. Let's say there are like 100 people and $100, and it's said that 25 of those people would get, let's say, 75 of those dollars. That's kind of like a ballpark, conservative estimation of everybody's, model of that 25 of those people would get 75 or more, but we'll say 75. So now you got, let's say, 25% of the people, those, you got $25, let's say that they get like $20. So what would that make them get, like 50 cents a piece? Yeah, those first 25 people, they would get $3 a piece, and that next 25 people would get like 50 cents a piece, and that next 50% of people is left with that $5, so they got like 10 cents a piece. And I'm thinking that if that 25% would just give up 50 cents more, that comes up like $5 more or 10 that would be divided among that other 25 and 50%. It would raise their income and revenue availability like by at least 25% in my mind. And even that 25% of people who gave up their little 50%, they would probably increase in what they have too in quality of life. Doesn't that kind of make some sense to somebody? That's my question and comment.
All right, thank you, Reverend. I think that's going to be a hard sell. I mean, it has been when you talk about different tax distributions and so forth and so on.
Yeah, it's definitely, when you think about, and really if you're talking about raising the minimum wage, we're really, yes, the costs will go up a little bit, but I think his point is well taken. The people at the very top are still going to be very well off. Lucy talked about this some too, and the people at the bottom will have money to spend, and so what that does is it creates an upward push, and so instead of trickle down, it's kind of lifting everyone's boat, and so the people at the bottom get a little bit more money. They don't really have a lot of flexibility, so they're going to spend money. They're going to have a car repair. They're going to need something. They're going to buy something extra for their kid to go to school with, and that spending is going to create more jobs, and it's going to create more income for the people at the very top.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Carl here. Carl, we got you on the line again. What's your comment or question?
Yeah, he's talking about that these cities, it hadn't showed that it reduced the workforce in the cities. Nashville is growing, and I could sort of understand where Nashville might need to could afford to increase the minimum wage. But you take Mount Pleasant, Columbia, Hohenwald, and you increase it across the state, and small towns where they're not growing, and like Nashville is, they can't afford to pay minimum $15 minimum wage to hire somebody to mow your yard or hire somebody in a plant to cut tobacco or do extra work and stuff. The farmers can't afford that. Big cities can, and it may show there, but your unemployment rate's going to increase on the
I want to talk about
end,
that.
and your prices are going to increase.
Yeah, I want to talk about that, right, because I think a lot of people feel this way. And you mentioned that Illinois, very similar to us, they have raised their minimum wage. And you mentioned also, with the exception of Chicago, which is the big city, what has happened in the outlying areas? What is the story there?
Well, I mean, what you're not seeing is this rampant unemployment. So you're not seeing prices go up by a large amount. You're not seeing people lose jobs. You're not seeing small businesses close. So all these kind of fears that are out there, which is understandable, just kind of a basic economic, hey, things are going to cost more, so it's going to cause these problems. That hasn't happened in a place like Illinois. So you really do. You have one really big city and a bunch of rural communities, and Tennessee has Nashville and Memphis and some much smaller places. One of the keys is phasing that in, but the other is it increases purchasing power, which goes back to then that money goes back into the local economy. So if you're from one of these small towns and now you're making a little bit more money, you're going to spend it there. You're not likely to drive to Nashville or Memphis to spend your money. You're going to spend it in Columbia or Mount Pleasant or Turtletown or wherever it is you live. That's where you're going to spend your money. In
the line of work that you do you often come across this, that people have these fears that make sense? I mean, when you spell it out, it absolutely makes sense. And when you say, well, this is what's happened in Illinois, it's just hard for people to buy into and say, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. And I think one of the keys is, and one way to allay that fear would be to create some sort of phase-in where, if something was happening and we were seeing, job loss or small business costs and we were phasing it in, we could slow it down. So you're not going to go from $7.25 today to $15 tomorrow. You may go from $7.25 to $8.25, and then from $8.25 to $10, and so on. And if we saw that was dragging down rural communities, we could address it. I don't think anyone's saying Tennessee should tomorrow have a $15 minimum wage. What we are saying is $7.25 is not sustainable, and we have to find a way forward. All
right, we have a couple of minutes. I'm going to go for a third time's a charm. Carl is on the line. Carl, I am praying that we can get you. Can we hear you?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, yay. Carl, go ahead. We got about 2 minutes here. What's your comment or question?
Well, I am a small business owner.
Oh, good.
And I've got a couple of concerns about raising minimum wage to 15 right off the bat. Like the other guy said a while ago, there would probably be a lot of your small-time business people would have to go out of business because we couldn't afford to pay that high for somebody in a low entry-level job. In my opinion, I think if a person wants to work somewhere if they work good, they can increase their ability to move up in the company, and they won't stay at minimum wage long. That's one of my concerns. And another one is if they raise minimum wage $15 an hour, a lot of you young kids now don't really want to come to work anyway. And if you raise $15 an hour when they go in at the bottom, that will not give them no incentive to move up. That's another concern.
Carl, let me ask you this question because we've talked about that jump and that it, in nowhere, shape, or form is it going to go from $7.25 to $15 overnight. Do you think as a small business owner you could make that $1 jump and continue to make it with the employees you have, and then in a couple of years make another $1 jump?
Oh, definitely. I think if they raised it up slowly and let the economy absorb it, that would be fabulous. But if they tried to do a big jump like this, there's going to be a lot of small places that can't afford it, and they would just close up and work some.
Yeah. Do you often try to promote from within?
Yes. That's the biggest thing about small businesses. That's what you want to do. It's a lot better to do that, and that way your guys already know what they're doing. You ain't got to train them. They just you just move.
Well, Carl, I'm glad we finally got you on the line. It's great hearing the perspective of a small business owner. Thank you.
I appreciate you doing this. I love it. Y'all keep it up.
Hey, we will. Thank you, Carl, very, very much. I love having those kind of conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and he was saying, that's exactly what I think has worked in Illinois and works in other places, is that gradual phase in. So here's Carl saying, yeah, I could do this every year or two. And we need to do something. It's just not sustainable to stay where we are. And you've got this guy who runs a business and is rightly concerned, and we want to make it work for him.
All right, we're going to come back and wrap things up in just a moment. Stay with us.
I joined